to the slides in the chat, but let me do that again in case you just joined us. Does that work? Let's see. Oh, no, I think that might be a different one. Nope, that should work. Okay, perfect. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. I'm glad you're here. The fact that you are here on a weekend proves that you do want to support your students and want to do what's best for them. And so I thank you for that during this time. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about social emotional learning and how to support our students. I'll introduce myself briefly. My name is Catherine Goyette, and I am in my day job an educational technology and integrated studies consultant for Tulare County Office of Ed. So essentially, what that means is I do a lot of sessions like this. I work with a lot of teachers and administrators, now virtually, but sit in on virtual class sessions and things as well. And this is a topic that's really, before that I taught kinder, first, second, fifth, and sixth grade. Social emotional learning is a topic that's really close to my heart, not only during this time especially, but I have a son who's in high school who has a mental illness, and really I've kind of seen what social emotional learning, why that's important for him, as well as my own experience in the past. And then I have a stepdaughter who has autism. So I've gotten some really interesting viewpoints there as well. In my first year teaching, I had some students that a couple students had gone through a lot of trauma, and that was really interesting, trying to figure out how in the world I can support these students when I can't empathize necessarily, and to do all I could to really step in there with them and support them. So that just talks a little bit about, why I think this topic's so important. So I did want to let you know that I've been blogging a bit about SEL and mental health lately. So that's on my website if you're interested in that. And let's go ahead and get started. So first, I would like to, perfect. You support new SPED teachers, Tony. I love it. So I'd like you to just take a moment and reflect on where you're at right now. And keep in mind that there's no negative or positive in how you're feeling, but it's good to just take some time and kind of reflect on where we're at. So we'll give you a moment. If you want to share in the chat, you can, but you certainly don't have to. So this is a common mood meter. They're found all over. I just honestly, I went to Google and found this image, but there's others as well. And really important. Oh, I love it, Henry. Optimistic, awesome. And sometimes content, awesome. Blessed and drained. Yes, Marissa, we can certainly have a multitude of emotions. And what we find about students is, sometimes it's difficult for them to identify why they are acting and behaving in certain ways. And if they can identify those emotions, that then leads to that self-awareness, then leads to self-management, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yes, agreed, Tony. Grateful to have a job, absolutely. All right, so here's another one. And these daily check-ins can be really helpful, whether it's in like Google Meet or Zoom or on Google Classroom. Some teachers will do just a question of the day. This is an article that talks more about that. I worked with a student, some students at a alt-ed high school last year. And it was an alt-ed school for students who needed support. They all had been diagnosed with a mental illness. And so they really needed to focus on supports for them. And what they did every single day was they tracked their mood a couple times a day. And it was really interesting because it helped them to identify, oh, this is why I'm having a hard time right now because I feel this way. Let's try to find how I can manage that. So definitely kind of the first step in doing this. And it can be done very quickly, very quickly. So I'd love to know before we get started though, what interested you in this session, because that will help me know kind of what to spend more time on than other topics, so to speak. Go ahead and take a moment and answer in the chat. Oh, nice, Marissa. So teaching SEL to students in independent study. Okay. Absolutely, Lisa. So important right now. Yeah, Victoria. Absolutely. The loneliness, sadness. Yep, definitely. They can certainly feel drained. Connection. Oops. There's my Google Home. Sorry about that. Ensure not neglecting SEL. Absolutely. Yeah, good point. So we'll talk about some standalone SEL resources as well as embedding SEL into your academics, since we've got kind of both here. Oh, Marissa, yeah, music, certainly the arts, really helpful as well for SEL. Excellent. Okay, well, let's absolutely connecting relationships. We'll definitely be talking about some of those things for sure. Yes, yes, yes. Helping teachers to embed. Absolutely. In math, definitely.
So, Kat, I'm seeing a lot also from people who are either some of our new teachers or people who are overseeing new teachers, and really making sure that we're giving them some of those tools that they can start utilizing in their classrooms. I think that'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely talk about some things we can embed as well. Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with this is the CASEL definition and competencies, the wheel, so to speak, for social emotional learning. So I'll give you a moment to kind of look through and read that definition, and then I'll talk a little bit about the wheel here on the left. So, we've got this wheel here of competencies for SEL. We have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And I really feel that this self-awareness piece precedes everything else. We have to know ourselves. We need to know ourselves as teachers in order to know how to best manage our own have those coping strategies and maximize our effectiveness, but it's also important for students. So for example, with my stepdaughter, who's now 7, who has autism, is just now beginning to say things like, I am mad. I am sad. And so it's been really interesting because now that she's actually able to start to identify those, now we can say, okay, well, when we're mad, rather than throwing a toy at our sister, what can we do? Let's hit the pillow, right? So it's one of our coping mechanisms. And so it's really helpful for kids to have that self-awareness first, to then lead to the self-management. I had a kindergartner, my first year teaching, who would start crying during lessons every once in a while. And so I discovered that she missed her brother who had passed away recently. And so we tried some different things. We tried, okay, when you're feeling sad, try going to, a spot by yourself. That didn't work. We just tried a couple different things. And eventually what worked for her was drawing a picture. She drew a picture that allowed her to kind of express those emotions. And then she was able to come back and be focused. And so that self-awareness piece, I think, is huge. And then we've got that self-management. Then social awareness, I can't really get to that if I don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So, that kind of leads, I think one kind of leads to the next. This takes you to the secondary guide, but if you just go to casel.org, you can find out more information about that. So today we're going to focus on psychological safety, but then we're going to talk about self-awareness and self-management. And so those are, and we will talk about building relationships as well. I know that there were some people interested in that. And there'll be resources for all the competencies I'll share. But I'll give you a moment to just look at these two competencies and what Castle says is involved in those. So we began today by identifying emotions. And that really helps us with that accurate self-perception, but it's also helpful to recognize strengths and build that self-confidence, particularly if we have students that are anxious, that are depressed, that are just uncertain right now in these times. And so this is all involved in self-awareness, and then we can get to that self-management piece where now I can figure out how can I motivate myself when I'm not feeling up to it? How can I set some goals? How can I organize things? Can I make a daily schedule? Students with ADHD and autism also oftentimes in the classrooms, they have visual schedules. They have timers and kind of reward themselves to keep on task. We can teach kids and parents to do this at home as well. They really need that support in knowing how do I manage those things. So these are kind of some things we'll talk about. We'll start about neuroscience with a bit about neuroscience. Why is this even important? How is our brain affected in these different ways? Then psychological safety, and of course, like I said, the self-awareness and self-management piece. So I thought this was interesting. This is, I went to a CDE webinar back in April, and over 1,000 educators were here. So you'll see that when we did this poll, 92% said that their district was or was planning on doing distance learning check-ins, which is great. But over 50% of teachers felt their students were not coping well with the social isolation. And so my wondering is, what's that like now? Because it has now been months, and this is the first time a back to school, I mean, this is never in the history of the world have we had distance learning with video calls at the beginning of the school year on certainly nearly the entire state and much of the country. And so this is completely new. And so my wondering is it even more difficult now? And I don't have an answer to that question. Yeah, I think it's still the same as well, Marissa. I really do. I know for myself, you know, it's almost worse because it's like, is this ever going to end, you know? So yeah, it certainly is challenging. So what we learn about loneliness is it does affect the brain. And you can click here to read this article. There's others as well. But there are effects to this on a neuroscientific level. It's also going to affect us physically. But something that's important for us to know as educators is our memory and learning is negatively impacted with loneliness. And so we know that this is something that's very important. And so here's just I thought this was interesting. This is in students' own words. We really want to try to empathize with the kids. What are they going through right now, right? Well, this student is going back to the work world to support their family because they're struggling financially and they're still trying to go to school. This student is watching younger siblings while still trying to go to school. The student's concerned and worried about her mother who's working at a hospital and is exposed to COVID. Online work seems pointless. Conflict in the home, domestic violence reports are surging, while child abuse reports are going down because the kids aren't right with us when we're mandated reporters. So a lot of challenges here. So you may be thinking, now that was all kind of depressing, huh? So let's talk about some good things now. The really great thing is the brain has a great amount of neuroplasticity. And while we know that there are these challenges, the great part is we know that the brain is built to repair itself. There's research on all this. And we know that one of the best ways that we can calm anxiety and that we can support our students who have gone through trauma is that human connection. And so that's key. That's really important. And that's one thing. There's other things that are important as well. Keeping, you know, that organization, which we kind of talked about a bit, but that human connection is really the basis of everything. And I know some of you were asking about building relationships, so we'll talk about that. Angela, I had a student mention the beginning of school year is the first time they're in touch with anyone. Yeah. My stepdaughters will Zoom, that one of their friends will start their own Zoom. They know how to start their own meets. And so they will, they'll contact their friend. And so they'll like have these video calls with each other. But how many of our students don't have either the devices or the Wi-Fi or the parents that know how to teach them how to do that themselves? Like hosting your own video call in 3rd and 4th grade, that's pretty good. But you know, not everybody is able to do that. But that is a need, certainly. Oh, they have lunch together, Christine. I love it. I love it. Some of the older kids might, or even they do too, to gaming, they're doing that collaboratively as well. So let's talk a little bit about that psychological safety, because if I'm a student that's gone through trauma, and it's been argued that we're all going through collective trauma in the midst of all of these changes and challenges. If I'm someone that has gone through that, I put up my guard, right? I don't want to make connections. It's difficult for me. I'm guarded. I don't want to get hurt. And so that psychological safety really needs to help us begin with making those connections. So we can, of course, use, whether you're using Google Meet or Zoom, the concepts are the same. Connecting with students is great, but do I feel psychologically safe enough to, in a whole group, make those connections with you as a teacher? Not necessarily. And so the small groups are really helpful, teachers have said, but what I really like is the office hours. But when you do office hours, how are you going to make sure that your students feel psychologically safe? Oh, this just shows you how to create a Google Meet in Classroom if you weren't aware. So one thing is a waiting room. Now, the new update of Google Meet does have a waiting room in it now. If you don't have the update, there's an extension for this. This is why a waiting room is important. If I am a student that wants to ask a question, whether it's academic or it's something where I'm concerned about something, and I think that during the office hours, one of my peers might jump in and hear what I ask, am I going to be as comfortable? And so it's really nice to have that waiting room there. It's small, but we sometimes don't think about it. So having that waiting room is really helpful. The other thing is this. I spoke with a colleague that said, if I was a student right now, the way I grew up, and I had to leave my camera on and everybody had to see where I lived, I would shut down. I would be so embarrassed. I was already embarrassed because I couldn't afford the clothes and, you know, shoes that all my peers had. And for them to find out where I live and what that environment is like, no way. And so we want our kids to feel safe. We are entering their homes. So how do we do that? Because some districts, some schools require the cameras to be on. And I certainly don't want you to, especially if you don't have tenure yet, don't want you to like go against that necessarily. However, if they can blur out their background or add a virtual background, that can be really helpful. So Snap Camera you can use for PCs and Macs, but there's a blur background on the new Google Meet update. I don't know if you've seen it, but it blurs the background, so that may be helpful. And then of course with Zoom, you can have that virtual background as well. So something to consider. Certainly, I think, I know I work with an alt ed school, and a lot of these students are certainly from difficult backgrounds, they have difficult home lives. And what they do is one of the teachers said it was really hard for the kid. No one wanted to talk. No one wanted to show their face. And so True Snap Camera doesn't work on Chromebooks, which is why I'm really glad they have that blur option in Google Meet now. And then of course there's, but here's another option. So this teacher said what they did was they allowed the kids to move the cameras up. So all they saw was their forehead and the ceiling. Like, at least I know you're there. And they said that all of a sudden more of the kids were starting to engage a little bit. So finding some way to make them feel comfortable can really be helpful during these times. Oh, Angela, perfect. Thanks for sharing those as well. Visual effects for Google. So Angela, is that for, I don't know if I'm familiar with that specific one, for the Chromebooks? Perfect. An extension, awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out and add it to my slides. Awesome. See, we learned so much from each other. I love it. All right. Okay, so building relationships. This was some of the questions. So let's say that I do these office hours, or I want to do these check-ins, but like, what do I say? What do I do? So if you click here on this bit.ly, it's going to take you to a website that some colleagues and I created. And the first one just talks about why social emotional learning is important. But there is a page for relationships. It talks all about relationships. And so here's some tips for advisory classes. So I think there was someone that said they're doing some independent study SEL work. So this may be helpful for you. Same with responsive circles, specifically for COVID-19.
Hey, Kat, could you send the link? I'm sorry. Could you send the link to this for the bit.ly? Because unfortunately, I don't know if people will be able to click on it in.
Sure. There we go. I just put it in the chat.
Perfect.
It is in the slides as well, but yeah, you can check out that as well if you wanted to look at it right now.
Thank you.
No problem. And then something I definitely wanted to show you too is this one. This is all about specifically building relationships during COVID. So what are ways specifically that I can build those relationships? Just saying, how are you? Like, do I really know how to answer you? You know what I mean? And so asking, how are you spending your time at home? What does your week look like? What did you do yesterday that you enjoyed? Things like that. And so this just gives you some specific ways to build those relationships that I think are really helpful. So, even ways to connect them to others, things like that. So definitely something that you may want to check out that's on that website. And also, was it on this one? We talked about the check-ins. This is an example of a check-in survey that some teachers have said they really have liked using. It was developed at Harvard. And you can take this Google form. No, I don't want to sign up. Actually, maybe I should, maybe later. I can look at that survey in Google Forms. And so I can just go ahead and like copy these if I'd like. So this helps the kids to actually communicate with you and identify with themselves how they're feeling. And notice, it is not required. If we want them to feel psychologically safe, I should not have to feel that I am required to share how I feel. But when I'm ready, I know that you are there to listen. I think that's really important. Oh, absolutely, Todd. The emojis are great as well, especially for the young students that are not yet readers. Yeah, the variations on how are you, absolutely. Okay, so prior to COVID, there was a second grade teacher that I worked with, and in her class, she puts up a new vocabulary word each day, or, well, I think she just has a few that she puts up, but, perplexed or exhausted, or these different words so that the kids can start to identify, not only get that vocabulary, lots of English learners in her class, but the kids really liked it. They wanted to know exactly what those words were. So it was kind of a cool thing that she did. All right, whoops. So there's that. And then here's 5-minute chats with students. So you say, well, I just want to do some check-ins. And so maybe Every so often, I'm going to schedule to have a couple 5-minute chats with students, maybe, you know, a few times a week or whatever. Here's some things that you can specifically say. So if you're just like, well, I know I'm not to, you know, I know I shouldn't just say, how are you, but what do I say, right? And so this can help with that, those 5-minute chats. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that preferring not to say is key. I really do. Even as an adult, when COVID first started and we were all at home and everything, my supervisor at first, we would daily, like on our schedule, track our mood. And then that was okay at the beginning, but then I started feeling like, I don't know that I want the world to know right now. Like, you know, I don't know. I just felt like if I want to reach out to my supervisor or to a colleague, that's one thing, but requiring to put that public made me feel really uncomfortable. So she actually stopped doing that because she had felt something similar. So kind of interesting. Some of you had talked about embedding SEL into your content area. And so there's also a page about that. So definitely wanted to share that with you as well. And you can check that out. And if we had like a 2-hour session, I'd give you guys time to actually look at some of these and say what you found. But, you know, I want to make sure that you get some tools and can look at them later. So these are just some different ways that you can embed them, kind of the how. So some pretty cool ideas in here. Now, I also wanted to show you one more resource. Oh, there we go. And I will put the link in the chat to this one as well. This is going to take you to our county. This was a collaboration between Educational Resource Services, Special Services, after school program, prevention, early childhood. Like, this website was created by a lot of people. And so there's a lot of resources for social emotional learning here too. So Common Sense Media actually has some subject level specific resources. I know specifically that there were some math resources. So you can click on that. And then down here, something that's really helpful. If you're not familiar with Centervention, they are free SEL, like standalone SEL lessons at all different grade levels. So if you're looking for standalone SEL resources that are 100% free, check out Centervention. A lot of teachers have told me they really like that. So definitely something I would recommend. And then something that I think is also helpful is books. So if you, there's been research that says people that have read fiction books, have read literature, have a better emotional intelligence than those that haven't, because as I'm reading a fiction book, I'm getting inside the characters' heads. I'm seeing what their emotions are. I'm seeing how they react to each other and what the effects are of their behaviors, how they relate to others. And so what you'll notice about this resource, and I'll put that in the chat too. Oh, good, Marissa. I'm glad that these resources are helpful to you. I wish I had time to let you explore them, but then I wouldn't be able to give you quite as many. So this shows the grade level and what competency it focuses on. So if I'm looking at having kids empathize with others and have that self-awareness, here's a book that may help help the students with that. So I really like this. There's even like ages 7 to 12. Examine perspectives of influences of others and self-awareness. And so this is talking about a grandmother fleeing Vietnam. So great way to get kids to really think about these things. And you can spark great conversations from here as well. So important right now too, that we are culturally responsive in our teaching and that we teach kids to be respectful. I mean, as an adult, sometimes, well, not too much, because the people I follow on Facebook aren't too divisive, but there's a lot of division in our country right now. And so if we could teach kids to be respectful, I think that's going to be really helpful. Okay. So let's go back to this. And Okay, so do some of you have your virtual Bitmoji classrooms? Has anyone done this? Awesome. So this is my virtual Bitmoji office because I no longer have a classroom of my own. And so I've done this with teachers that I'm going to be working with for a while. And I've told them to just click around and, oh, awesome, Marissa, you may want to click around and then just put some things you notice or wonder in the chat. And these are, you know, a lot of times these are teachers I don't even know. I'm just beginning to work with them, and they'll say things like, oh, I clicked here. Do you have you been to Sydney? And then I answer a question, well, yes, I have. And, oh, I love to travel. I've been to all the continents. And it really helped to connect with others. And this is something you can do with students as well. If they know your favorite football team, or, you know, they feel like they have something they can talk about with you. You're a real person. We need kids to make contact with you as a person, not with Khan Academy and Bill Nye the Science Guy. Like, they need to, not to say you can't use those things, but they need to know that a teacher that cares about me actually prepared this for me. Oh, Innovator's Mindset. Absolutely. George Couros. Absolutely. Great book. I would consider George definitely a mentor of mine. Amazing, amazing. He's spoken a lot about the need to focus on, I don't know if he actually like calls out social emotional learning, but he talks a lot about building relationships right now. So if you were wondering, how do I create one of these Bitmoji classrooms? This animated GIF here shows you exactly how to do that. This shows you how to create one from scratch. Oh, good, Christina. Yes. Oh, Kona, nice. Oh, I haven't tried that one. Yeah, I have an espresso in my office actually, and then at home I have a Breville actually. So yeah, I'm quite the espresso fan. But I'll have to try that, Kona. That sounds great, Christina. So this shows you how to make a Bitmoji classroom from scratch. But I'll give you some templates that are free in a moment. If you like this animated quick tip GIF format, I make one just about every week. And so on my website, that's on the first, second, and last slides, they're organized by app. So if you happen to like this sort of format and you want to look up more, you can find those there. All right. So that, you know, I was showing you kind of how to do this to build that relationship, but you can also, of course, do this. Oh, I didn't give that example. Okay. But you can also, you know, put content on here. Now, these two images will take you, maybe you already are familiar with this, but if you want to make one of these Bitmoji classrooms, but, oh, who wrote on this one? Someone like copy and paste it on here. That's funny. I don't know why that's there. Well, anyway. So there's all these templates that are already made. So if you wanted to create your own and not have to start from scratch, you can use one of these. Or if you have some colleagues that are like, well, that virtual classroom you made is really cool, but I don't have the time or expertise to make one. So now you can give them one of these. And there's all sorts of options. Pretty cool. All right, let's go back over here. All right, oops. Here we go. Open the chat again. Here we go. Oh, and if you don't have the Bitmoji Chrome extension, I love it. I love the Bitmoji Chrome extension. So I would recommend that you add that if you don't have it already. Okay, so we talked a little bit about building those relationships as far as, you know, one-on-one, those 5-minute chats, some resources for that, having kids reflect while you're with them live, kind of like we did here. But there's asynchronous time too. And so how do we make sure that our students are able to connect with us even when we're not right in front of them virtually? And so it's really helpful to make your own videos of yourself teaching, of yourself just saying hello, I care about you, I prepared some things for you, I'm glad you're here. Making that connection is really helpful. Again, they can't build a relationship with Khan Academy right? But if they know that you care enough to have made this quick video, that could be helpful. So you may have already been familiar with some of these tools, but there's a couple different ones to record yourself and or your screen. Screencastify and Loom. And so with those, Screencastify is the free version, has up to 5 minutes of recording time with up to 50 videos per month. Loom right now for educators is unlimited, but Screencastify will allow you to integrate with YouTube and Google Classroom, even Edpuzzle, just in a second, whereas Loom does not. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. You can, of course, make a video in Flipgrid, just on your phone. And then YouTube is super helpful to put all these videos in YouTube, and this is why. Oh, but first, I'm wondering if any of you have created those pre-recorded videos, and if so, what platform have you used? So give you a moment to answer that question, if you'd like. Marissa said she's used Screencastify and Victoria, Loom as well. Okay, Lisa, Loom. They're both great. Flipgrid as well, Angela, perfect. Screencast-O-Matic, a lot of people like those as well. Okay, Veronica, haven't used any yet. There's some tutorials here as far as some like screenshots that show you how to get started. Flipgrid as well, perfect, perfect. So a lot of you already know about these tools, which is great. I would say with Flipgrid as well, we talked about like those 5-minute chats and office hours. I know teachers that will use Flipgrid to have like, they have one Flipgrid topic. A topic is like an assignment. And that one topic is always open and the kids can't see each other's videos. And so if I'm awake at 10:30 p.m. doing my work, and all of a sudden I have a question, and I'm not going to remember it at 8 a.m. in the morning or 10 in the morning when we have our meeting, I can make a video on that Flipgrid asking you that question, and then you as a teacher, when you are able, the next day or whatever, can actually answer that question. So that's been really helpful for kids to feel like my teacher cares enough that they give me a way to communicate with them, like a two-way communication, even when I'm not there. So you're always there, even when you're not there, essentially. Consistency is key, especially for our students that are stressed, that have experienced trauma. Making sure that they know that there's always one place they can go to connect with you can be really helpful. All right, so highly recommend you upload your videos to YouTube. I'm wondering if you guys have done this. Let me know in the chat if you have, if you upload your videos to YouTube. Angela, yes, perfect, perfect, awesome. So if you're not doing that, okay, Marissa, this I'm going to talk about on private or probably unlisted, Victoria, because on private you're the only one that can see it. Blocked at your site. Ooh, Henry. So hopefully you could. Okay, so not yet. It feels intimidating. Certainly. Okay, shared on Drive. So let me tell you about why I like YouTube. And then Henry, let me also talk about how some sites allow this, even if they block YouTube in general. So the reason I like YouTube is it does integrate with Google Classroom and Google Slides beautifully. For one kid on private. Interesting, Victoria. Okay, I see what you're saying. This way, it's not taking up room on your device. It all goes, it's all unlimited storage. It's phone friendly. So if you have kids that struggle, have a Wi-Fi that's not so great, it's going to take less bandwidth for them to watch a YouTube video than to watch a video from your Drive. So that's another great thing. Of course, you have your privacy settings, which is great. Oh, and I was going to say too, oh, and with Canvas, Tony, awesome. Henry, I would say some districts have told me that if a teacher creates a YouTube channel, which first time you try to upload a video, it just asks you a couple questions. Then what the district will do is whitelist your entire channel so that the kids can see anything you post. So it's not like they can see all of YouTube, but yours are all like that. Okay, SafeTube. So then what you could do, Henry, you'd have to put it on YouTube and then put it in SafeTube. I see. Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's, you know, it's a little different everywhere. That's fine. There's another reason to use YouTube. I can feel like I am confident and I can access this. Remember, confidence is part of that self-awareness. So with YouTube, if you're not in Fontana and you're allowed to, oh yes, Megan, Flipgrid has captions too. And so that you can turn on closed captions, translate those closed captions, even a video you make, YouTube will do it in about 24 hours or so automatically. You also can slow down the playback speed. So if you were a student like my brother who has an auditory processing disorder, and what he would do is he would, in class, he hated school because it was difficult and everything mostly was verbal, right? The teacher's telling you what to do. He would wait and watch and see what the other kids do because he wouldn't really understand the directions verbally, and then he would copy them. You can't do that from a distance, right? So if he could have slowed down the video, that's going to be really helpful for him. You want the kids to feel confident. If it's in their language with closed captioning, that's great. This is a video that will teach the kids how to use those accessibility settings. If you would like, you can feel free to send that to them. If you have not uploaded a video to YouTube, this shows you how to do that. Your kids will laugh at you if you use if you don't use landscape mode on a phone or iPad, just letting you know. And then this talks a little bit about Screencastify and Loom. Okay, so, oh yeah, and if you're making a video, you can emphasize your cursor by going to your accessibility settings. That two-way communication, I talked a little bit about this with the office hours, but also with building community. Flipgrid is great for that. So this is what it looks like. It feels like social media for the kids, and it's essentially great for asynchronous video conversations, if you're not familiar with that. So this talks about that. Oh, it says grid. They're now called groups. So that's a bit dated. I have a new Flipgrid, all the updates on my site. I have a slide deck with all the new ones. All right. Yes, Lisa, the moderation controls on Flipgrid are excellent. Excellent, excellent. You get to approve each video if you'd like before the rest of the kids see it. So, okay. So self-awareness, let's go ahead and move on a little bit with this. We did the virtual Bitmoji classrooms, but a lot of teachers, I don't know if anyone's done this, are doing virtual Bitmoji lockers. Oh, Marissa did that, perfect. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm the kind of person that kind of doesn't like icebreakers, and even my son doesn't like icebreakers. I was asking him about it last year when I was writing a back to school blog post. I wanted to hear a student perspective. I know a lot of kids like them, but here's the interesting thing. During all of this time, and he has an anxiety disorder, and so he was real down and nervous about the fact that this is his senior year and school's going to be so different, and this is how's this going to work, and is it going to be harder or easier, and all these things. And so, you know, he's feeling real down for a couple days and talking about all that. And then he had, all of a sudden, his mood kind of improved a bit, and he started getting excited, thinking about things that he enjoyed. And I was like, what's going on? Well, his digital photography teacher had asked him to do an About Me project. And this is a kid that doesn't like icebreakers, but kids usually, if they can now, they're in this negative state, they're in this anxious, bummed out, lonely state, and then they get to focus on things they like, things that they're good at, things that they're confident at, then that's really, I witnessed, it helped boost their mood. I see the same thing with my stepdaughter when she's able to draw a picture, because it comes from her, right? So definitely a great thing to, you know, I think it's something that really can help. So awesome. Yeah, feel free then, Lords, to do this. All right. As far as building that self-confidence, having options for kids can be really helpful. Allow them to explain in their home language. Why not? You know, if I feel from a distance You know, I don't get those scaffolds as much as my teacher being right in front of me, but, or even if it's hybrid, you know, there's times when I'm at home. And so if I am allowed to explain it in my home language, will I be more confident and more likely to engage in the work? If so, use Google Translate and just see if they got the gist, you know? And then that creative expression is excellent. There's research that speaks to, and this actually activates the parts of the brain aligned to universal design for learning. That's what this is from. But there's research that shows that people with mental illness are greatly helped and supported when they're allowed to have creative expression. So, and it might be different for everyone. Maybe for some kids it's art, some music. I'm not saying don't focus on academics. What I'm saying is, as you are asking kids to share what they learned about academics, can they make a video or draw a picture or do a role play or something like that? Why not? So choice boards can be helpful. This is an example from our science department. However, I have recently read articles that say kids are experiencing choice fatigue. If you are a student that is feeling overwhelmed, you are, you know, anxious, this may feel like too much for you right now. And so what I would recommend now is begin with maybe 2 choices, and then always have something like this that maybe has a question mark and says, or what else? If you have an idea, talk to me. Maybe it's going to be something that that you want to do. So definitely something that will help motivate and engage kids if they have a little bit of choice in that. Yes, Megan, exactly. Can you just tell me what to do? So my husband teaches high school history and is a tech coach as well. He just teaches a couple periods a day. And so he's had kids say, Mister, can you just give me a worksheet? Instead of the open-ended things that he gives them. You have to get them used to this. Absolutely. That's very true. I think that they've had school that way for so long. It's a little scary. Absolutely. If you can't choose, pick the center one. Perfect. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that either, Marissa. When I first started giving kids lots of choices, I didn't, it did feel overwhelming to them, and I really had to guide them and support them, but that was in the classroom. It was, you know, I was able to have those conversations with them. Now I probably would start with less choices. Absolutely. All right. Glad to hear a lot of you have talked about how choice boards have been great for you. That's great. Sketch notes. So I heard that these are being recorded. My husband did a session all about sketch notes earlier today. So if you're interested in this topic and you didn't go to that, maybe check out the recording later. But sketch notes are a great way if there's kids that enjoy drawing and feel confident at that. Sketch notes are a great way to go. This is a webinar that actually, this is from the Q conference, the virtual Q conference that occurred in March. It went virtual. And so this is a webinar that Sylvia Duckworth gave, and it's on there for free, the recording. And so she has written several books about sketchnoting. Some of you may be, oh, Libby said it was great. Awesome, awesome. Yes. Now, if you say, well, I don't know that I want to learn this whole new sketchnoting thing, it sounds like a little much. I'm feeling overwhelmed myself as a teacher right now. I'm prepping longer than ever before. I get it. I would say maybe do this. Hey guys, when you are, you know, hey class, when you are writing your notes, if you would like to add a picture that comes to your mind to help you remember this, I'd love to see that quick sketch. So, and they can take a picture of it, right, to send you in Google Classroom, for example. So here are 3 videos if you are using Google Classroom. These videos will show your students how to turn in a picture of their handwritten work. All right. So let's talk about self-management a bit as well. So here we're talking about stress management, self-discipline, self-motivation, organizational skills. These are so much more important even now than they were before. And if you are someone who is, or in the spring, everyone was really working from home, right? You may have noticed yourself even how much more important this is than it was when we were in a classroom. Some people, maybe others not, but for students that don't have someone right there saying, check your agenda, or, you know, write this down, whatever, it can be a lot more challenging. So if you're using Google Classroom, if you're using Canvas, same concept. Do kids know where to find all their assignments, all their posts? If you have not already, make sure that you're using topics in Google Classroom. Now, in the past, many of the teachers I worked with in a multiple subject classroom, for example, would say ELA, math. Now what a lot of teachers are doing is saying, this is week 1, and then they'll put like Monday for any assignment that is Monday. So it'll say like week 1, you know, August 6th through, you know, 13th or whatever. Well, no, that would include weekends, but you get the idea. I'd love to hear, if you are organizing your classroom real well, how you're doing that. It doesn't have to be this way. You could also, I know a first grade team, they're using Google Classroom, but they felt that it would be tricky for their first graders who had never used Google Classroom to go in and find all their work. So they're making, they have a website by week. Perfect. Oh, awesome, Victoria. I agree. Organizing by week lowers their stress levels. A different emoji or color per day of the week. I love it. Perfect. A today topic, pushed it to them and after the day is over. Absolutely. Perfect. Whatever way you organize it is fine. We don't all have to organize it the same way. The key is that it's consistent, that the kids always know right where to find things. Really, really helps with you know, their stress level. The last thing I want is to spend so much time trying to find the assignment that I then shut down. Absolutely, it helps parents too. Yeah, for sure. Did I put the picture? Oh, I didn't. Okay, that's all right. If you're not familiar with Slides Mania, there's a lady named Paula that makes, I put it in the chat there, Slides Mania. Awesome. Yeah, Angela knows. She's amazing. Absolutely. This lady named Paula makes all these free templates. She just wants to give them away for free. She wrote a blog about how, okay, I'm just looking at the time, we're good. She wrote a blog about how people were like taking her templates, changing them a bit and selling them on Teachers Pay Teachers, and she was really frustrated because she wants you to have these for free. So if you go to slidesmania.com, there's all these templates, and Lisa and Angela are saying, yes, she's amazing, great resources. This is one that's a weekly planner. Again, it's just the idea of being consistent. She has daily agendas. She has digital notebooks, all sorts of things. So I would certainly encourage you to check it out just to see if it's something that may be good for you. You'll also see, like this one, there's a video embedded. So maybe you embed a video where you have that relationship with kids. You're connecting with them by making a video of yourself, just saying hello. Hey everyone, I'm glad you're here. As you know, this is our Monday slide. On the left, you're gonna see our agenda, blah, 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 right? So you're actually making a quick video of yourself talking about that. It's gonna make a big difference. If you have older kids and you wanna teach them about using Gmail and calendar and tasks and things like that, this talks a little bit about that. So here's some other resources for you. So this one, for those of you that said, you know, I want to use, I want to embed SEL, but rather than always doing these standalone lessons, how do I make sure that it's integrated into my classroom? So if you click here for this resource, and let me put it in the chat as well. This is from Castle, and it talks about some different ways to support the competency levels. It's thinking. So it does say that there are certainly freestanding lessons with those explicit lessons. However, there could be just general teaching practices that support this. Certainly something to help with that. So this is a whole bunch of different ideas based on, say, self-awareness, age-appropriate vocabulary words. So this is something that second grade teacher I knew was doing. I'm building vocabulary I'm helping kids learn vocabulary words for emotions. Maybe I'm using that to help us analyze a character, right? Maybe I am talking about responsible decision making. That's one of our competencies when we are going through and reading a text, right? Maybe in mathematics, there's a lot about growth mindset. And so maybe I'm helping to build their confidence by saying, okay, how do you feel about this? Remember, our brains, Joe Bowler talks about this all the time, right? Remember, our brains can grow when we have something tough. That means that we're learning, right? So those are all things that can help us embed that SEL into our classroom. So there's all sorts of things here that will help you embed those into your classroom. There's a lot, but they're here for you as well. So, I mean, this one's important. Some of you may be aware of this one for self-management, the think process. So before you post something, T, is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? K, is it kind? That's just something that you can teach kids to do even when they post in Google Classroom or Canvas, right? That's not something that's going to take a whole lot of time to implement in your classroom. I know you all have a lot to do. I know you are just swamped right now. So there's a lot of resources that I've provided here. I would by no means expect you to use all of them, but I wanted to give you a few different options so that, number one, you can go back to it when you are ready, but also because what may resonate with you might be a little different than what resonates with someone else. There's some more resources here. This here is going to take you to the SEL roadmap, which was created by Castle specifically for these times of reopening schools. So just wanted to, I mean, it's 53 pages. So, I didn't want to go over some of the things that I touched upon were in here, but it's something that you can reference if you'd like. All right. So I would like to know, these are resources that were on that website as well, actually. I should have just left that off there so it wasn't so overwhelming there. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. I do want to thank you for being here, of course, as well, but I'd love to hear what is it that maybe you might try. One or two things that you liked, that you learned, that you might try for two reasons. Firstly, it helps me to know what to focus on in the future and what is really helpful and valuable for teachers for future sessions. But also, if you actually write something down, the research shows you are probably more likely to remember to do it. So those are the two reasons I'd like you to think about one or two things that you learned that you may try. And I want to thank you all so much for being here and for everything you're doing. I feel that teachers are superstars. I really do, especially now. I know that every single one of you is spending a lot more time prepping than ever before. You're all like brand new teachers, and I just thank you for that. So again, if you want to just drop in the chats, one or two things that you learned, and feel free to contact me in the future with any questions or any support as well.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for being a part of this here. I believe we actually have about a 30-minute break before the next session will be starting. So again, you can stick around here. I'm sure Kat will answer any questions that she has. And Kat, if you want to drop your contact info in there, perhaps even your Twitter handle, that way people can get a hold of you as well. But again, thank you for sharing a large resource right there. So really, really grateful for that.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm going to revise the check-in form. Excellent, Victoria. Prefer not to share. Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, kids might just start lying, to be honest. Yes, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm happy. Even, you know what I mean?